Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Robert, we really appreciate you being with us. We're hearing two very divergent accounts of what took place here. What is your assessment of the situation?
Well, this is the worst violence in 40 years or so, and it appears what happened was that the Indians were improving roads on this is the actual line of control. The border is kind of shaky. They have a 2,100-mile border, remember, and some of the is not precisely delineated. But I think the Chinese were upset because they were building roads and other infrastructure, and they wanted to prevent that. And they brought in some heavier kinds of military equipment than is usually there. And this has been going on for weeks. This current event happened actually as they were trying to move down from conflict, and so it got out of control when they had arguments and so on. And where the problem for India now is that for both sides really is that nobody wants a war, but nobody wants to lose face and back down, and so it's going to be difficult. I think remember India is still in the throes of COVID-19. Their economy is weak. They're not in great shape, and they're becoming increasingly in the last several years become more skeptical of China and have moved closer to the U.S. And I think that the problem here is much bigger than this particular event, because the Chinese have become much more active in South Asia, in areas like Nepal and Sri Lanka that have been traditionally dominated by China. So that makes the Indians rather nervous. And moreover, there's a pattern here of Chinese assertiveness, what they call asserting sovereignty. And we've seen it in Hong Kong. We've seen it in sinking ships in Vietnam, confronting Malaysia in the South China Sea, sending carriers off of Taiwan. So it's a trend in terms of Chinese aggressiveness, and that makes it a little more discomforting. And don't forget, we're talking about two nuclear weapon states here.
Right. Robert, there were multiple rounds of talks between Indian and Chinese military commanders in the lead up to this, actually designed to sort of lower the temperature and diffuse the tensions that they were seeing. Unsuccessful, but some have even gone so far as to blame the U.S. President Donald Trump for inflaming the tensions that we've seen by clamping down on China and befriending India. Is that too far off, or what is your take on that?
We shouldn't blame Trump for everything here, but I think from the Chinese perspective, the U.S. is talking about an Indo-Pacific strategy, and India is an important piece of that, and that's made the Chinese very uncomfortable and probably a bit more belligerent towards India.
And one last question. Why is it significant that we saw this latest clash happen in Ladakh?
Well, Ladakh abuts Aksai Chin, which is claimed by India but occupied by China, and it's a big source of contention. And the concern is that as the Indians improve their infrastructure and roads and stuff, that the Chinese will move more heavily into a confrontational situation and try to block Indian activities, and that could be a recipe for escalation.
All right, Robert Manning with the Atlantic Council. We really appreciate your expertise. Thanks for coming on.